Welcome to GreenBiz Studio. I'm John Davies, Senior Vice President at GreenBiz, and I'm excited to be speaking with Tim Mohin, Executive Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer at Persefoni. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, John. It's good to be with you.
It's great to see you. So for those who don't know, can you tell me a little bit about Persefoni and specifically why you got involved there?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think it's always good to start with the origin story, if you will. And John, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I've been in the sustainability business from the beginning. I think I used to joke that I've never had a job because I found my calling early on, and so the career breaks down of 10 years in government as a regulator before we had the word sustainability and corporates weren't considered responsible. And then 20 years working in the private sector where we got to know each other at three different big high-tech companies. And then the last 4 years before this role, I was CEO of Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI, which, as many people know, sets the sustainability reporting standards used by just about every company that's reporting on sustainability. I joined a startup called Persefoni because honestly, the people, the values, the product, the market were all there. You know, for all the years that I worked in the private sector on corporate responsibility and specifically climate issues, it's been under-resourced because primarily this is an area, if we were honest with each other, it's voluntary. It's based on reputation, and that's the motivation for it primarily. Not that a lot of good hasn't been done, it has. But as climate in particular and other ESG issues start to cross the threshold into the mainstream of global commerce and capital market regulation, we're seeing the need for enterprise level software tools. And so when I saw that what this company could provide would fill that gap, it was a pretty easy decision. This is a chance to do well while doing good. The phrase we've used for many, many years is really at the DNA, at the center, at the core of what we do at Persefoni.
Well, with upcoming SEC rulings and just the general explosion of ESG, it's sort of like at the start of the pandemic, people really didn't know what supply chains were, and now everybody knows what supply chains are. And I think we're seeing a similar thing with ESG. So, what's your take on this exploding world of ESG?
That's a great question, John. I've related it to the old Ernest Hemingway quote that, he said bankruptcy is a very gradual process and then it's very sudden. This is the same with ESG. We've been working in this field, you and I, for a very long time, and all of the sudden, it's now kind of crossed that threshold, as I said, with many investors, governments, standard setters, folks that hadn't previously been involved in this area at all. And the reason for that, again, looking at climate, not the only, but certainly the top of the list for many people in the broad range of ESG issues, is that we've now recognized that climate risk is financial risk, and not just a risk to companies, but a risk to overall economic stability. And so with that kind of motivation, it's essential that we have the kind of rigor to produce accountability and comparability and consistency across the capital markets. This is what Persefoni does. We've basically coded in the entire accounting procedures, the greenhouse gas protocol, into our system. We have over 107,000 emission factors. It's essentially the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Platform for carbon. And that's something that simply didn't exist before and now is going to be needed in this more regulated future that we're heading into.
That's great. And I know that, you continue to expand and broaden the scope of the platform, the Persefoni platform. Just finishing up here, for people who haven't gone far on the journey yet or haven't been able to automate their accounting, what's your advice of how they can get started?
Yeah, that's a great way to close it. I mean, I talk to a lot of groups, and I think that there's a lot of education that's needed as people sort of come up to speed with regulatory requirements, the new standards. There's kind of an alphabet soup, as you know, of things going on there. But if you break it all down, it's actually fairly simple. Carbon is a data problem. There's no one chasing behind your car or your airplane with an emission monitor trying to figure out, exactly what the carbon emissions of that flight or that drive are. It's an estimation technique. And so that's just a very simple example of what we're talking about. If you take all of the transactions that a company does throughout its normal course of business, each one of those transactions has a carbon impact associated with it. What you can do is automate that. If you use the travel example, most companies use a system called Concur, and you can pull that data out of Concur. You can apply the right accounting procedures, calculations, and emission factors so that you can actually create a real-time greenhouse gas impact. Now, multiply that through supply chain, through every different business transaction, and you can see what we actually are doing. But we've not stopped with enterprises. We actually do this for financial services firms as well, because they want to know what's the impact of their investments or lending practices. And so we can automate that process as well.
Wow, exciting times, Tim. I'm sure you feel that way. I've been talking with Tim Mohin, Executive Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer at Persefoni. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.